My name is Ernie Anthony Little. Christian name, I guess it's Ernest, but I hardly ever go by Ernest. I grew up, I live 10 miles north of here off on the east side of Highway 18. And the little house that we grew up in, me and Elizabeth grew up in, was given to us by my dad. I think him and a couple of neighbors built a frame house and a stucco house. Mm-hmm. And they lived in another frame house, and they did all the cooking, and they stayed in there with one of my sisters. I come from a large family. My mother is Mildred Cooney Little. My father is Wallace Henry Little. Mother was born in 1911, and my father was born in 1901.
My name's Henry Retcloud. I'm a member of the Tihangtuan Oglala Lakota Nation. Tioshbaye is Iteshicha. I come from the Slim Butte, born and raised out there. Back then, the ancestors, they coexisted with the land. They had food. You know, we had everything out there. The main language was Lakota. And so, yeah. That's basically, we had to haul our own water, but it was fun. It was fun to live that way because we were self-sustaining.
I am Lawanda Stands and Looks Back. I'm from the Sichangu Uyate. I live here on the Rosebud Indian Reservation, and I am the tribal transportation planner for our tribe.
So was it like the log cabin?
Log cabin. Log cabin. That's what we had. That's where I was born, was in a log cabin back on the old homestead. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
When did kind of you start transitioning into the cluster houses or the newer kind of construction houses? When did you start transitioning to that in your lifetime?
I don't know. Here on the res, I haven't even lived in cluster housing, so I don't even know. I don't know that. I always lived away from town, you can say, away from Pine Ridge. 1997 was when I put up camp here. I put up a teepee. We owned the land here, so I put up teepee, stayed in the teepee, and 1995. I'll have to share this with you. 1995, when I first arrived back home here, I spent years off the res working, so 1995, 94, fall of 94, I said, well, I'm going to go home and see what's happening back home. You know, miss the language, song, dance, ceremony, miss the relatives, miss the jokes and everything that was shared and meals and all that. So I came back. I was working on the Washington Bridge in New York City. We were changing out the rivets up in that bridge. So that's what I was doing then. And that winter I came back, spent the winter here. That spring I was pretty much in a crossroads in my life. I could easily go back out, go back to work. But I had a deep calling for the land. So I start looking around, looking at land use, looking at the old homestead, the old fireplace, the old place where I was born in. And oh heck, I need to do something there. So and then I went around that spring. I went to the powwows, the gatherings and that, and saw a lot of my relatives, and asked them a question. If they had a wish, if there was a genie that can pop out of a lamp and grant them one wish, what would that be? What would that be? And a majority of them answered this way, and it didn't, take them long. But most of the people that I asked lived in the cluster houses. And they said, I would like to get back to the old homestead. Would like to rekindle that old fireplace. That's how I felt too. And I was surprised to hear that. They said, here we are. One lady said, here I am. Been living here first time back in the 60s. I've been here 40 some years, almost 50 years in the same house. My parents had it, and then now I have it. And she said HUD's, first of all, they build houses that ain't adequate for this here, climate. And then HUD is actually it's a federal government, but here they call it the OST housing. That doesn't have nothing to do with that. That's that's a federal program. So and there's some guidelines there. You can only have one dog, one car. They encourage you to have green grass and a flower bed, but it's a big no-no around growing food, and that you can't do that. So she said, here I am. I'm hooked up to a dialysis machine 3 times a week, and I can't go visit my sister down in Denver. I can't go visit anywhere because I'm hooked up to this machine. I gotta. So she said, it's frustrating. She said, I wish that this never happened. The families coexisted with the land, had everything they had. They were healthy in that. And here I am running down to the only store here in Pine Ridge. And she said, the quality of food ain't that good, and it's the price, expensive. And she said, so that's where I would like to be, is to so then with that response from numerous people, I thought, now, how does one member go about doing that? How do they reclaim and start utilizing their land? The 1890s Dawes Act. So I found myself within the confusing language of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, tribal politics, county. There's there's 4 governments here, and they don't work together. They don't try to bring the quality of life up, or housing, or anything. They don't try to do that. They have a language of confusion. They leave their relatives in a confused state where they just kind of throw their hat in and just kind of give up on the process, because that's what they get paid for, is to confuse us. So anyway, arriving back here in 1997, putting up a teepee, and said, okay, I'm gonna coexist like the grandfathers used to do, which I was used to. So okay, I can do that. So I found myself up and down the Front Range of Colorado there for about 3 years. I basically volunteered, showed up to natural build, show up and say, okay, I'm here from the neck on down. I'm here to volunteer. And I learned straw bale, wobbling doll, rammed earth, all the different techniques of natural build. And within that, I heard about solar. So I started saying, okay, we're going to need power, and looked at the cost of bringing power to your place. If you got a home, what's that going to cost? And started looking at that, and really dove into natural build, and utilizing our natural resources to start to educate people on how to build homes, build yourself a home. So I did several types, and I'm still involved there. I took solar to the. I started out with small things. I start manufacturing the solar thermal. I start doing that. Taking the 1970s concept of solar hot air, doing research and implementing 21st century material, and coming up with an animal of a solar heater. Basically a super hot box, circulating the air inside the house and helping people to save. And partnerships are really key. You got to start partnering up with people that are doing things what you're interested in. There's where they're very key. You could do a lot because you're all on the same page. There is no time for let's say reinventing the wheel. We came past that. If we continue down what we're doing, 30 years ago we were on this. That's when we were seeing the impacts of climate change. That was 30 years ago. We were on that tipping point. So there's no time to reinvent any kind of wheel. We all have to band up like a bunch of wild oglalas and start going down this road together. Taking this, taking solar to the next level and creating Red Cloud Renewable Energy Center, working with tribes, working with, community, respect the, tribes throughout the country here, and creating economic opportunities, creating rooftop ready jobs. And since then, 2006, we opened the doors to a training facility, training annex, in solar housing, and start moving down that road, bringing all of this back to the people. Working at the grassroots level, not working with the tribe or housing or anybody, all the other entities. No, the bureau and that they're all confusing. They're going to confuse you. If you want something to last and have a lasting impact, you work with the grassroots people. That's where that changes. We've seen it for, let's, step back in time, 1960s, human rights issues. People from all different nationalities banded together and marched on Washington, D.C. and changed legislation. That was the grassroots people. We were coerced then to go stand in line over there. Well, submit this application and go stand in line. We'll wait for when your application comes up, we'll call you. So there we are standing in line, forgetting that we are the power. We could change things. We were just told to go wait in line and somebody's going to tell us what to do from there. So there we are. Everybody, every nation here in the country, everybody's waiting in line. You can mentally see all these lines throughout, everybody waiting. When it's easy enough to start exercising your right, your inherent right, exercise your power, because you are the power. And get out of that line and start moving forward on something that you hold, passion to your heart. So for me, it's housing, clean energy, and bringing up the quality of life for, people here on the res. Not only here, but, currently there's 574 federally recognized tribes. So we here at RCR, we're working with 70 of those federally recognized tribes on these here projects. Wow. We had over 1,500 students come through our program, created multiple jobs, over 600 jobs. And yeah, it's only getting, the way everything's moving, the whole, country, Biden administration, Biden and Harris released a lot of money. Clean energy projects, infrastructure, all this stuff. So we as, tribes, I talk to the tribes, some of the decision makers, and tell them, look, did you know that this money's available? All you got to do is apply for it. And so, that's what we do here. We're working with the tribes, working at the community grassroots level, creating economic opportunities and bringing up the quality of life, getting reconnected to the land. Our ceremony, song, dance, everything that we do, our language, all of this is all connected to the land and to the sun. So it's, taking this new way and honoring that old way and then becoming sustainable. Yeah, I would like to see one of the First Nation communities, indigenous, tribes become energy independent before mainstream America. Mm-hmm. It can be done. Yeah. You have to have just the right decision makers or coming from the grassroots level to make that change. Mm-hmm. It can happen.
So you'd mentioned that you were the director or manager of the housing program. I guess, can you kind of share your experience working with them?
Yes. I actually used to be the occupancy supervisor manager. So that experience there was, as I was telling you guys earlier, there was a lot of processes that needed to be streamlined. And the big one I'll talk about is getting into a home, being on the waiting list to get into a home. There was a list there where they go to first a certain area for intake, and then you have to put your name on the list. You have to fill out your application, and then it's up to you to come back about every 90 days to update that. Now, the problem with that is not everybody here has a vehicle. At the time I worked there, our transit program that we now have, 2010 to 2023, almost 24, there was no transit program. So how are you going to come back to keep updating your application when you barely got a ride in that day? So that was one thing that I worked on hard to get rid of that. So if you had an occupancy specialist, like say you were for the Rosebud community and you're for Antelope community and you're for Parmalee community, which those are our three biggest communities, they could just call into Jack and say, Jack, this is Lawanda. Nothing has changed on my income. I'm still homeless and I'm just calling in to update. So that was one little process that got changed. And then that turned into a big conundrum because now the occupancy specialists were getting inundated with calls and calls and calls. But I don't know. I was just like, I hate to say this to you, but that is your job to answer those phone calls and get that list updated, continually updated. So there was that, is the intake process to get into a home. Beyond that, it generally takes anybody 2 to 5 years to get into a home here. And some of the homes just wait. So there's that. So there was the intake, the long waiting list, 2 to 5 years to get into a home. And then to go to the homes that were damaged. And you had asked earlier, Aaliyah, like, what's the number one reason people get evicted? So at the time when I worked there, it was not paying their rent. And then it falls thereafter, abandonment. If people are out of their homes, a couple of guys were in jail. 30 days, 90 days, 120 days. Well, that's under the rules of HUD, that's considered abandonment. So then here we were evicting people that were in jail and didn't call. I tease them. I know you can call more than just that one time after you're incarcerated. You need a call. But so there's that. So I'd say not paying rent, home abandonment. And then, of course, all these long years, back in 2010, here's meth. Tip in the iceberg here on our reservation. So I don't know right now currently what the number one reason is, but my guess is probably meth use, and they get evicted out of the homes. And then those homes are boarded up. 6 months, some of them been a year, some of them been 3 years, because they're slowly cleaning them and getting them ready. And then to go inside a home where somebody's been evicted from, damage. Holes punched in the walls. Some of the homes I went in to inspect, they didn't even have a working bathroom in them. So then now as the housing occupancy supervisor manager, then there's another problem because now it's a health hazard. You know, I'd be like, how is your family living here? And mind you, you have other relatives living here. How did you keep clean? So then we can go on to a socioeconomical issue over that and our health. I mean, it just just that one home spawned out all these issues out of that one home. And then, that's one home that's times 100 here, the same thing. So that's a big problem with the housing here that I saw working there at housing when I was there. Back rent at the time. We have home ownerships. I live in a home ownership and I'm thankful that I can afford to do that. And then, my home's paid off. Yay, homeowner, which is the goal you always want our people to get to, but some just can't. Some are just not, unfortunately, set up like that for success. Get to college, expand your mind, get educated. It's just not like that for some people. And so they rely heavily on Indian housing to get into a house. Some of the people that I counseled and talked to, they were just like, but this is our land. And then there's this attitude, this is our land. So those houses are ours. That's owed to us by the government. Why am I paying for that? So, and then I would be, but there's pride in ownership. Why don't you maintain it? And why don't you keep it clean and healthy? You have grandkids running around in here, So, I mean, you drove the community, so you've seen how the houses are, how the yards are kept and such. So that would always be my 2 cents back to them. Where's pride in ownership? Your health. I mean, it's owning your health. Do you know how sick your environment can make you? So those would be questions that we would ask. And then I mean, this is 90 days. Go, 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 go. Then I had the occupancy specialist asking the same questions in their communities that they were assigned to. So unfortunately, I left. I took a different job. And so all of that streamlining and really trying to get the occupancy program to where it needs to be, it's just all went under. And so I'm not too sure how it operates over there now, but you'll find out when you go over there what happens with occupancy and the homes and how slowly. I mean, it is slow getting homes repaired here. I think one home we looked at when I was there, I want to say it was probably upwards of $20,000+ to renovate, to fix a home. So I said, there's all kinds of grants out there that will aid in this. There's private grants. We probably could get money because this is one person. This is Lawanda got evicted from there. And now that's almost $20,000 worth of damage. But when is Lawanda going to get the bill to pay for all that damage? Never going to happen. I mean, last I looked before I took my job was back rent. And I mean, all the low rent housing, all the communities, 20 communities, and even some home sites was $2.1 million. And that was in the summer of 2010. So now we're almost, another, 14 years down the road. So I can't imagine what that dollar must be by now, the back rent owed. So if people just paid their rent as any other, normal operating realty system, there'd be money to repair homes and get people back in, out, in, out, in, out. But that's not the reality that you guys, I think, will find. You went to Pine Ridge and now you're going to look over here at our Indian Housing Authority. You'll see that. Yeah.
The house that you grew up in, was it the log cabin construction?
It was built like out of full 2x4s, I think, if I remember when we took it down. It was 2 rooms, and me and my brother helped put the stucco on it. We helped a local craftsman that did stucco houses back then. It was a frame. I think they built everything on 2 foot. And I never learned that till later in my life, but when I was young, I remember my dad working. We used to roof that house with rolled roofing, and we helped mix the mortar for the stucco on our house. And then my folks lived in a frame house, which my son renovated. He put a different roof on it, and we put up-to-date material on the house. And my son-in-law painted it, I guess. And I've been in the housing development business for about 33 or 34 years, I think. And I've lived in the same place for my whole life. in the same. We live in a house that I got through the HUD program, and I could get to that eventually.
Okay. So, in your whenever you were growing up, like in your teenage years and adolescence years, from what you can remember, what were kind of the were there any problems with the buildings then? Like, what were the conditions of the construction and infrastructure at the time?
I guess we didn't have no power, and we didn't have not such thing as water and sewer. And both of my parents, we had a regular house, and we had a well for a pump, and got our water from. But mostly all the neighbors or something had some kind of apple animals. They had horses and wagons and a saddle horse, and almost all the houses were log houses. And they had a pitch roof, and the roof was rolled roofing tar paper, most of them, what they could put on. And there was a couple guys that, when they introduced us to shingles, asphalt shingles, put some of them on, but most of everybody could put roll roofing on, and I think everybody built on 2 foot centers, I think, and they didn't have plywood, all the fancy stuff. Now it's all, I think, like 1x6s and 2x4s and wood stoves, and thinking for the heat.
So with the kind of natural building materials that you talked about, can you kind of elaborate more on kind of that construction, like the dome?
Sure. It's an individual, a family's going to have to take a look at their surroundings and see what there is to then build themselves a home. So you got to take a look at surroundings. For these boys from the East Riverside, there's not too much trees out there, not too much out there, a lot of farmland. So their grandparents, great grandparents, probably built cod houses. Energy efficient, really warm, really cool, like a cave and that. It's, utilizing your natural resources. So I took a look around. We got some logs, but we got ponderosa pine. Ponderosa pine's got a big trunk on it at the base and really tapers off really quick. So not too much lumber there. You have to be very, selective, and it might take you a while. And using straw, it's okay. It's got some, thermal proprieties, but there's I tested all of them. So you got to make them rodent proof. Straw seems to attract rodents, so you'll have to battle with rodents. And then I looked at rammed earth. There's a machine right over there that makes 2 blocks per minute, taking our soils and compressing it at 3,500 psi's, and coming up with a building material that can that is fireproof, windproof, flood-proof, bulletproof, and it's high in the thermal mass. Feels like a cave during a hot 100-degree summer months, and easy to heat up. So you create the atmosphere inside there. Taking them things, looking at resources, what we have here. And then we start looking at this new, well, it isn't new, it's the cellular concrete. On the internet, you'll find it as cellular concrete. Foamcrete, you'll find it. It's like 90% air bubbles. It's a mixture of water, Portland, and foam, like shaving cream. And that mixture of farms are then put together, and then the solution's mixed and then poured in the farm. Real hyper efficient. I mean, really hyper efficient. man, it took like $150 to heat that home last year.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. And
that's
it
impressive.
was all off a little square, little 4-inch electric heater. It costs $30 a month to heat that. Basically, $1 a day
Wow.
to heat your house. Then, if there's 4 or more human bodies in there, if the 4 of us were sitting in there, our bodies emit 400 BTUs. So the 4 of us will heat the place.
Wow.
So yeah. So, taking this stuff, what we have around us, and creating creating these houses, a healthy home then produces healthy children, a healthier lifestyle. And so for me, it's like a rebuilding of a family, Tioshbae, and nation, and nations.
And then whenever you rebuild it yourself,
Yeah.
that establishes that sense of pride
Yeah.
in the household that you reside in.
Exactly.
And what we're really trying to emphasize with this project is that there is no pride with the housing that they're bringing in. There's no there's no cultural relationship, and the program of the building itself isn't suited to the needs of the people. And so it's definitely,
this way is really nice here, building round our culture. We lived in, teepees, nomadically followed the buffalo. We're used to round. Round feels good. When you go inside these units, man, you feel good. You feel, it just feels so good. The wind then doesn't have any corners to catch on to. Tornado proof. Versus a square house, the wind's going to catch right on the corner, tear the roof right off, and tear that whole wall off. So yeah, getting back to that, and what we're doing is we're educating people around that. I'll have to say thank you to the funders for funding us to being able to build 22 of these domes and give them away here. In that process, training people. I would like to see some LLCs farmed around this and start to put the building of, people's homes back into their hands and start creating economic opportunities. So we're taking every aspect and training in that design, as well as the earthen block has, proven itself as well. That can be built, circular. So yeah, and then putting solar on it. Solar we as Lakota people on the northern plains, the Ocheti Ishakoin, the 7 council fires, our base ceremonies, song, dance, language, our way of life is all based around the sun. That's our way, as well as every indigenous tribe through the country here. It's based around Ampetui, the life-giving force. It's awesome. So, we're going to keep on doing. We're currently building the awareness, and I could see this just taking off, mushrooming off into where all these other tribes can then come here, get the technical support, and then take this home and start doing their warrior deeds and start building a house and building awareness and then getting back to coexisting with the earth again. Some of us, we put our hand to the earth and we don't feel nothing. Some of us, we feel kind of pushing back.
South Dakota Native Housing Coalition, they received some funding, and so we are part of their coalition committee, and Lakota Funds is part of that too, and we do a CIP for construction internships. So it helps some of them that come from schools, or helps some of them if they're in their, kind of in the age group of anywhere from 18 to 24, it could be 30, that they're looking for a different career. And helping them get trained in construction, because our construction and our maintenance is pretty limited too. We just, the workforce ain't there right now.
Like since COVID, yep.
Since this a pandemic came and went, in a year or two, we lost a lot of
Well, people just ain't applying for work.
Yeah. And so we're trying to train some of the younger people when they come home and help them get monies for their schooling and stuff. So that's what we do there.
Lakota Funds is a CDFI out of Pine Ridge, out of Kyle there, and they are taking homeownership loans. They do the loan, and they usually work with the 184 programs. What's Jules' name?
No, Jewel Burnett.
Yeah, and to
What is it called? Lending, First Lending.
Tribal Lending, yeah.
And they're out of Sioux Falls.
And so when they get approved for a loan, if they're buying on their own, nothing to do with us, they can go out and select the homes they want, whatever their approved amount they're approved up to, and then they can start searching, or however they want to do that, go solicit for homes to be built. And so, we have a TDH here in Rosebud too, but it's not fully up and running to take on those loans yet, but it's getting there. They're pursuing that. So, and that one's called what? Tatunka Funds. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a CDFI here in Rosebud too that also will assist a potential home buyer to get a home, get it moved into a home.
So, like with different communities and stuff, I guess, could you kind of talk about like the issues that are the most common issues, like with the materials in the houses or the appliances, or I guess what are like the most common, I guess, issues with these different houses?
Well, usually when we bid out a home, it included all that. Materials is included, appliances. So it's up to the contractor to secure those, but we do some of our own for rental units. And for a while there, appliances were really backed up, was one thing. There's different materials were also like that. I think metal roofing was one issue that we had trouble getting for a while. And windows is a big one, a big back order on windows. And some doors, like solid core doors. There's probably those are the main three: roofing, windows, and some siding. Some of the good siding that was some backed up orders, but mainly appliances too was one of them. So yeah, our warehouse does a lot of these ordering materials for our rental units, but those are probably the main issues as far as material wise. And another issue is getting that environmental done. We have a staff member on board who does that for us, but it's just getting the responses back from those entities that are required to sign off to get a home site, And then once you do get the home site, it has to be approved through BIA, and it goes off to Aberdeen too, and then that takes time. That's another one that takes time to get back from Aberdeen. So, anything else?
Procurement too.
Yeah,
you
procurement.
Really
No
almost
bidders.
Need
Nobody's bidding.
you almost need a procurement officer to really concentrate on procuring what you're going to procure. The description of what you're going to procure. How much are you going to procure? Because anything over 250,000, you have to advertise it for at least a month or longer. Below then, you can solicit bids or solicit your RFPs, proposals, bids or proposals. So procurement office is pretty important and really should be concentrated on what your needs are, whether it's maintenance or whether it's new housing or acquisition or rehabilitation. There's all kinds of need for us as a tribe, a treaty tribe at that. That's so critical to the health and welfare of all our people, that they have a place for their children and they have jobs. Without that, you have so much poverty, and we don't go nowhere when it just trickles here and there, when we are the inheritance rightfully to all the land that we live on. So we should be in better shape, I say.
Yeah, there's a huge crisis need as far as housing shortage here. Every reservation, but
Yeah, every reservation, I'm sure.
And our formula dollars just don't let us build the amount we get. It's just barely enough to run our programs.
And you can't really go out and borrow and be using up your block grant money. I know when you only get $8 million a year, I mean, that could be ate up in no time and all, when there's 30,000 enrolled members or more, So yeah, it's a struggle, but we make it work the best we can, and what we can do. But yeah, and then architectural, I don't know, I guess, it's best to get an architect, civil engineer, because you need to know what that soil is out there, and you need to have an architect to help you build what you're going to need. That's to the law, of some kind of code, so you ain't just putting up something that inferior, or burns down so easily. You got to have ways and means. I know there's codes of window codes and electrical codes, plumbing and all this. So, yeah, so that's one, and that's what we've been looking towards too, is and with the coalition, is to try to build Native American our own codes, similar to the residential code, the ICC, but for Native Americans here, that matches for us and our need. So it ain't so overly stringent either in construction, So we've been working on that too.
SWA has a corporation under it, which is called OHDC, building manufacturing plant right out here, right about out back here. And we could build probably up to 7 homes inside of there at a time. And we just roll about on air casters and then pick them up with our house moving equipment and move them out. But the tribe is currently working with OHDC they got some COVID money, and they committed $20 million to homes. And what they're doing right now is trying to get some homes for these workers for the programs. Like the first 5 are being sent to St. Francis Indian School. So they're currently sitting over there. They moved them over there. The next 5 look like they're going to Law and Order. So, because their staff has trouble finding places to live around here. So the next 5 will be, I think, looks like they haven't made the official commitment yet, but that's where it looks like that next 5 are going. And so they want to do this for some of these programs to get some staff housing going. And that way they could sell them back. They're going to sell them to these programs. They'd get more money back into the program when they could build more, So that's another thing that's going on here on the reservation. But all that decisions are made by the tribe and ARPA committee, which is the council, tribal council. So they're currently on their second 5 they're building in the HDC plant right now. So we're looking to keep the OHDC pretty busy for the next few years. I think they got up until the end of 26 to spend their money. So
What other questions?
So I guess this would kind of be the wrap up question, but I guess like coming from your guys' different backgrounds and I'm pretty sure and your experience on the reservation, what do you guys envision for the future generations of kids and youth? What do you envision for housing and infrastructure development for the reservations?
right, currently IHS got a good chunk of money to assist with infrastructure as far as water and sewer hookups. Whether it's tapping into the existing sewer lines or putting in a drain field for a house that's sitting out by itself. So we're lucky to have them sitting on a pot of money because they're going to be doing on these 5 houses we're building now. They're taking on the septic tanks, the water hookups, and stuff like that. So that saves us some money there. And but it's always been a problem because before the COVID hit and they got a big chunk of money, they had a backup list too because their funding was short. But currently they're sitting on a good chunk of money, so for a while that'll ease the pain for us. And I think the only other part of infrastructure is mainly our foundations. That cost has gone up too, so it's another burden, I guess, cost wise. But those are kind of the main thing as far as infrastructure. As long as those people all got their home site papers all lined out and ready to go, then they get on the waiting list. And once we secure the funding, that's when they get there. But one thing we're trying to get away from is these big 5-bedroom homes too. Currently, past homeowners are elders now, and their kids grew up and moved out of the homes, and these elders have trouble heating their homes. So what they do is they block off some bedrooms and not heat them, and what it does is the condensation turns to mold. So we're running into that. Then these elders don't have no money to fix up their homes, get that mold out of there. Or even if it's bad enough, you have to tear out the sheetrock again, redo the whole thing. So we are trying to get away from 5 bedrooms. I think most families can fit in a 4, so that's what we're asking them, if they'll accept a 4 instead of a 5. So that's been another issue that we've kind of been running into.
I think as far as the youth and their goals is, I'd like to see more opportunity for them, whether it be in the economy, in housing, building, more opportunity for them in order for them to be self-sustaining. I really think that, and I'm going to be honest about this, drug stuff, meth, has taken over a lot of our people. We can't have that kind of activity on here on our reservation. It's probably worse than most. It's out there all over, but I think it affects us more, and it affects our housing, and it affects our children. So I have to be honest about that I hope that however we fight that kind of activity, that we don't want it here, that type of thing, it ruins our people. But I want them to have more opportunity for economic development, more support for self-sustaining. Rather they have businesses out of their homes, like, their beading business or their food catering business or whatever they would like to do, because to grow our economy, I believe those people have to start. with that economy to help each other to get up out of our poverty issues. And that's how I feel, and I really think that even contractors, they need hands up. Our Native American contractors, they need that hand up to get them moving. Because there's insurances, there's payrolls, there's they're gonna need they need help. A small contractor can't afford an office, and and when they're barely moving, so they're needing some help in those areas to be able to help us, to make homes, build homes, or do renovation or acquisition.
We did seem we get some grants for some rehabs to help us out with rehabs because seems like the younger people now, not so many of them are going into the construction field or maintenance programs, and so we're struggling labor wise too. We used to have seasonal workers, get a bunch of them during the summer to do all these outside jobs, and we're not getting that no more since COVID hit. A lot of people are not applying for these jobs anymore. So I don't know anything we could do to interest these younger crews, younger people to apply for these jobs. It's good money. The labor has gone up significantly, and you can make a good living out of it, if they choose this path, So I think a big campaign to start recruiting in these fields would certainly benefit them down the road here, with these youth. But because we've been advertising some rehab out in the paper, and some of them only get one bid, some of them don't get no bids, And I think part of that is also from the bonds just seem to be harder to get nowadays. Security bond, and people are struggling with that. Even big contractors who've been doing this for years are starting to struggle getting a bond.
Even coming to the reservation.
Yeah.
Out there it might be different, but even here I've had 2 big contractors that they couldn't even get bonded. I don't know if it's because of the reservation and the sovereignty issues. All of a sudden, boom, these things came up.
Yeah, so contracting has been a little slow here as far as struggling to get them on board and get these houses rehabbed. We got some burnout units that we're advertising right now. And I haven't checked with her lately, but I don't know how much she's got in right now. But we'll probably sit down next week and go through those and see how many bids we got in. So, but we're trying to make it work, work with the problems we have. So.
And so with kind of that transition from the log cabin to the newer kind of frame construction and methods of constructing houses, kind of when did that transition start happening? When did those kind of cluster houses start becoming a thing on the reservation?
I don't know exactly how they, but I know that all of the land is owned by the tribe. And the cluster housing, the people used to be more scattered out. And I went to Lone Man School for my grade school years. And all the kids I went to school with, we used to pick them up on a government bus. They used to live along that river going north towards Rapid City in the Slim Beach Road. When we built that cluster, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time there, a guy named Glenn Barber hired me there, and it was the first time I got introduced to dimension lumber. He told a guy that was running that job for him, he said, this is Ernie. You're going to teach him how to drive a forklift, and you're going to teach him all the different types of framing material. So he taught me how to, I just knew 2x4s, but 2x6 and 2x8s. First time I ever seen a piece of plywood, there was a kind of a buffalo board, they used to call it. We call it Celotex building material. And I think it was a 412. The first time I ever heard a term of 412 pitches of roofs. And that's kind of like an introduction. We had nails. Everybody had a hammer, and they framed with framing nails, I think with 16 penny nails. But I didn't know nothing about them. A nail was a nail to me. And I didn't know there's water resistant nails or galvanized nails, different types or different sizes for different lumber. But that was kind of my first. I was always more in the interest of the drawing a house and watching them build a log cabin, how they used to notch them and stuff. I myself helped my dad and my brother haul the logs out of the hills, and we would skin the bark out of them. They would lay bare. And we would build all our corrals. And he built a actual barn out of them logs. They must have been about 10 inches in diameter or something. But we had a barn for our team and our milk cows back then. I was probably the late 50s or early 60s.
Do you think that it's important for the built environment and communities to be planned by architects and urban planners? Do you think that would kind of set apart from what we have today with today's development of cluster
I think at that time, I think my dad taught me everything he knew about what land, and he made a statement to me that was really interesting in later years. He said, if you own some place to live and a home, you'll own it, son. But I think when I went to school, I don't think they encouraged you, but just manual labor. I didn't like you guys are exposed to education system. At that time, I think there were some people who were able to afford education, and some of the kids went to that, but most of them grew up to be laborers, and they died like that. So I think if right now I could think of credit worthiness, I should say, I think that we got lost in that, and what the actual value of money was. I remember most of the guys would carry their money in their pocket or something like that. And they didn't go to a bank or nothing like that. But I do want to give, in this interview, I want to give credit to a guy named Glenn Barber. I always call him the grandfather of this reservation housing. He told me himself that he went to the HUD office in Denver, and he went to different reservations. And the HUD office I think they used to develop the projects, and the architects, they must have had architects on board who would sell the plans to the tribe or give them to the tribes that they were awarding the houses to. I don't know if you notice east of town, there's a brand new building on the side of the road, on that side. There's Johnson Holy Rock, his name was. He used to be our ex-president, but he also was the formation of the first housing board, and he was in the service. And he went someplace and he discovered a public housing. That's how we got introduced to a different type of. I guess he seen all these different people. He said, "How come these people all get this money from the government? And we don't get anything. There's nothing for the Indians." So that's where the Indian Housing Bill was born, I think, in John Kennedy. I think when John Kennedy was going to be a president. But he brought that back there. But we had no schooling, and carpentry, or plumbing, or electrical. So a guy named Gilbert Eckerfee and Tom Brewer on this side is some of the information. I became real good friends with Mr. Eckerfee. He was the one that actually, I think, hired me for the local housing. And at that time, when I got hired, the chairman of that board, they elected the board from the reservation white districts. The chairman of that board was a guy named Newton Cummings, who later years became our president and got fairly good at handling money. And Gilbert Eckerfee told me that him and Tom Brewer started a school or a little class for carpentry and stuff. He was really good tiler and he was a really good carpenter. But that Northridge, when you go north of back on 18, that was the second project I think that we got HUD funded for. Gilbert, when we tore apart a house, there were some actual names that people write their names. A guy named Walter Redcliffe was a local carpenter. He got schooled under the tribe then in carpentry and stuff. There was Mr. Brewer and Mr. Eckerfee's guidance that they had these little classes and showed them how to build stuff. And I guess at that time they got a little bag of tools and whatever they want, masonry. And so I would say that was my introduction to the newer phase, and I'm pretty well knowledgeable about different materials now and what they do with them.
So Mom said that you live in one of the houses that they kind of I can't remember exactly the type of house it is, but I guess can you kind of elaborate your experience living in that house?
Actually I was going to have you guys just come over and do the interview at the house, but the house that I live in, it is Indian housing, and it was my mother's home site. So I'm glad she had the foresight to move out of the community, because we lived out here in Antelope community. We lived right in the dam side over there. And so when I grew up out there, that community was clean. There was no trash anywhere. And all of us kids, we all took turns mowing lawns for the neighbors, and everybody watched out for everybody when I grew up out there in Antelope community. And so to drive through there today, it's sad. I mean, that's all I can say is it is sad to see the environment, to see how that community is. So my mother got a home site just 2 miles outside of Mission here as you're going towards Rosebud. And when you guys drive that way, you can go drive down around the teardrop or point it out to them or whatever. But that's a HUD home and a home ownership. And how those work is when you get the home site, you have to have a structure on your home site within a year. If you don't, then that home site agreement is considered terminated. But so my mom got that home and she got the HUD home. And originally the contracts for all of those types of homes, we were supposed to have a basement, but of course the money fell through. So I have a nice tall crawl space that I could almost stand up in, but mainly walk like this underneath it. But it's a small 4-bedroom, 1,200 square foot home it did have 2 full baths. But when I moved back in, I had allowed my sister to live in there after my parents both passed away. And unfortunately, here's a social ill of our reservation is she was a meth user. So my poor house that I live in now had methadone cooked in it. People doing meth there. And I don't know whatever else in that home. I got her kicked out. I had her evicted out of there because and you know, when you're a homeowner, you can sublease your home to somebody else. So that's what I was doing. Then all this occurred. So I had her evicted with the help of housing, helped me get her out of there. When I moved back in the summer of 2010, we were still cleaning the home. I had a previous sister-in-law who had rented it from me. So I told her, I said, you know what? Bernita was kicked out of there about 6 months ago. I don't even know what it looks like because I was in the military. I'm a veteran. I was stationed in Hawaii. I forgot to mention that earlier, but I was stationed at Hickam, and I said, I'm way over the Pacific Ocean. I have no idea how that house looks. And so she went in there and she sent me photos, and it was just horrible to think of that was my mother's home. You know, that was her home. And now here it is, trash bags in there, gang signs sprayed on the wall, holes punched in the walls, the floor, which as you know is cheap flooring. I mean, just the tiles picked up. The bathroom, the first bathroom, I always remember the sink worked, but there was no toilet bowl. The bowl was cracked in half. There was no toilet bowl. The back bathroom had a toilet bowl and no sink at all, nothing. It was just the spigot right there, the faucet. The shower was ruined. There was a big axe gout or something in the middle of the shower. So there was, those were all fixed and cleaned. And so I really always appreciate, her name's Carol Gregg. I'll never forget. They cleaned that house from top to bottom, end to end, replaced sheetrock. And then, of course, I just let them live there. Of course, I don't know how many months it was rent free, but that was a lot of work. Then when I moved back in 2010, I have 6 children and I still had 3 younger boys. So I went through and I'm like double checking all the furnaces. And I'm glad that I did. And from the military, when you do concertina wire fence setup, you have of course, specialized gloves for that. So I had those on, and I'm glad that I did, because what did I find in vents? Needles. Drug needles in the vents. So I remember calling up Carol and saying, wow, didn't you worry about the vents? And she said, we just used the wood stove. We didn't, and then propane for the heat for showers, but we didn't. So I told her, I said, there is a bunch of needles in the vents. And so we went under the house, took all the HVAC hoses off and just cleaned it. So that's what I came home to my home out here, my Indian house on the prairie. It was, but drugs, that's another just bad social ill. Maybe take them and drive them through Sunrise apartments there. Yeah.
They just had that fire.
Yeah, they had that fire. The roads are horrible through there, but it's ridden with meth use. So, but over the years, I've just slowly worked on my house. We did an addition. We added on a nice big bedroom to it. Floors are redone. The bathroom's completely gutted and redone. So it's just a work in progress, constantly working on it. Last year at the double cycle blizzard, when that hit us during this time frame, there were sections of the house we didn't even stay in, because it revealed how cheaply built these homes are. I mean, there was wind blowing through where all the years I've lived here, I've never experienced that in Indian housing. I mean, we know that it's cheaply built, but not like that, just blowing through the home. Like we literally had to have blankets up blocking off like different parts of the house. So we just stayed in only one area because it was warm. Because the rooms, wind blowing through the house. So all summer long, all we did was take things apart, insulate them. I mean, that's all we did, little by little, just kept working on it and sealing up. I had the boys go in the rooms with just marker. I said, go in there and just put just a little tick by where the wind is just blowing through. Yeah, that was something to be, I don't know. It was sad to me. Like, wow, this is my home. That's my health. It's my environment. And look at this. It's drafty and the wind just tore through. And then there's that, to add to just some more things for Indian housing. I think you'll see a lot of the homes, we're all growing trees to do a natural windbreak, because drive them by, take them down there and see the little trees. We're not done. We're going to add some more rows of trees there so we can have a natural windbreak, because it's just open right now. And my swimming pool's totaled.
It gets
in the
really
back.
windy out here.
It's totaled. So, so there's that there.
So, I guess, could you kind of describe kind of the social interaction within these communities, like what you see today?
So what I see today from when I grew up out in Antelope community is one, there's a big break somewhere along the line here. I'm always saying there's generations missed, generations ruined. Like we have generational gang violence, we have generational meth houses. And so that break right there, raising your kids in our communities, it's gone. It's gone, as you'll see from driving. You drove out there, to go out there and see all those yards dirty, all those houses trashed, all those houses not repainted. We weren't picture perfect, but it didn't look like that. Like we all watched out for each other, and that's missing. That sense of community like that, it's gone. There's another housing area south when you go to Valentine. We're about 30 miles north of Valentine, but from where our casino's at. And then across the way is Sichongu Village. And that housing, it's nice, but I'm just waiting to see how long it'll take before it might end up looking like, Rosebud or Parmalee or Mission, just right down the road here. So that generational gap right there, I always think it's just from social issues as gang violence. There's sex trafficking here. There's drug trafficking here. Highway 18 and 83, major routes that run right through our reservation, north, south, east, west. So, and there's just like no control over that. I mean, that's a jurisdictional issue. My God, we could sit here and talk about federal Indian law too, but it is. And so that's another battle. The difference in the communities, how I grew up there and how it is now, the closeness and just being a community, a sense of, we're Sichongu Oyate. It's not there. It's not. So.
I guess, what would you like to see in the future, like with these houses? Like, I guess what do you vision kind of happening if things were?
What I had envisioned when I was there as the occupancy supervisor was to start really kind of moving away from a long time ago. My mother, she worked at SWA too, and she was a counselor. I mean, a counselor. They were trained to counsel, to go into the homes and say, hey, how are you doing? If it was an elder and they were diabetic, are you remember to take your medicine, and remember that you need to keep your bathroom clean, and like go in there. And I mean, I'm not kidding you, like life counselors. So I thought maybe we should bring a little bit of that back. But these need to be managed like a realty, because that's what this is. It's a rental. It's their rental properties is what it is. But there's no these families, these people are all missing life skills. Somewhere along the way, growing up with 10 cousins in your house, you missed getting life skills on how to maintain a home, pay your bills, keep your home clean, food on your table, pride and ownership, keep your yard clean. Like a lot of them, my mom would say, they would just stack their trash. And I'd say, no, put it in the trash bin. That attracts roaches and rats and mice, stray dogs. You don't want that around your home. So way back in the day, that's what housing was. They actually went out and counseled people on how to maintain their homes. And so that was a little bit of what I was trying to bring back. Not a whole lot where we're just checking on you 24/7, but when we came out monthly to do our inspection of your homes, like what's going on with you? Are you guys okay? Is there meth use here? Is there too much alcohol here? Because back then they were really strict. There was no alcohol allowed in the homes, and of course no drugs. But back then it was just a lot of alcohol use, and now it's a mixture of both. So that's what I wished would happen. I wish that would happen for our housing, that they would have just kind of clamped down a little bit more and do some counseling when they go into the homes, but also treat it like realty, because that's what it is. They're rental properties. What you don't pay in, we can't come and fix your toilet because there's no money to fix the toilet, or there's no money to repaint your homes during the summer. Instead of they're all sitting there sun faded. You'll notice the paint's all faded. Or we can't put a fence up because there's no money, because guess what? None of you pay rent. and you know it's income based. So some of the teachers, like when I first, because I only worked there during the summer, and so one of the teachers called and she said, "Luanda, this is so and so. Can you please reduce my rent down to 0? I'm sending you my letter. You should get it in the mail today. You know, because I don't get any pay during the summer. I'm a teacher's aide, blah blah blah, and so the rent is reduced down to 0 because there's no income. So HUD will work with you like that, but you have to do your part and maintain the home, which that's the problem, is not maintaining the home.
Yeah.
So
Do you think implementing those counselors, just like when you wanted to, like the call-ins for the 90-day updates, do you think implementing those counselors would help with that process too?
I think it would help. I'm not sure it would help 100%, but to me, I always think if you even help 10% of a problem, you've gained some footage. You've done some change. So I always wish that they would do that. You know, just instill that program and get home counselors there. You know, when we went through, we only did Horse Creek, and there was a lot of it like preventative maintenance of your homes. You know, I'd say, why are your on the sides of the homes there those little grates? I'd say during the winter, keep them closed, but during the nice months, I mean, you can even start as early as April, all the way, if we have Indian summer, October, November, keep those open. So it airs your home out, the wind flows through. You know, during the winter, of course, close them up. But so there were things like that. The grates weren't open, and it's hot, it's stuffy in here. There's this and that problem, and I was like, but that's what those are meant to do for you. Just bathrooms, work orders not being called in, biohazard things going on in those homes. We were at one home, and they had a a cable box outside in between the homes because there was 3 or 4 homes wired up sharing one cable box. So they're innovative. People out there are innovative. If they want to get something, they're going to figure out a way and get that done. But there's just so many different things there. But I don't know. Just the one thing is I wish that they would implement that again. Just a little bit home preventative maintenance and just some life skill counseling, you know.
Yeah, just one step at a time too.
Something.
Yeah.
Something. Anything will help.
What do you think architects and planners could do to better the housing, like for newer development and stuff, like moving past kind of the idea of bringing in houses from like out of state kind of entities, but just building kind of houses like
if we had the resources, if we had the funding and we had all the resources to do that. You know, a lot of people are trying to rush and do a tiny home, which for some families around here, you know, that might work. I would love to see homes that are green energy. Like at my house out there, I really want to get off the grid. I would love to have a windmill, and I would love to have solar panels so I could just be off the grid completely from Cherry Todd Electric. You know, some of our homes here, they have geothermal warming, so they're water. But I mean, Sichangu Village, you'll find that, and I think up in White River, some of the homes around there, the water's like that. So, but you know, for here, the weather pattern. So let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about climate change in our little, I would say, our matchbox Indian homes. They're not built for the climate change that's here. You know, I never thought that I would see the climate change, but we're living in it right now. So last year's double cyclone blizzard proved to me that my house cannot withstand the 60+ mile an hour winds with blowing snow, or no, it just can't withstand that. So of course we spent the summer re-insulating, taking off the paneling and putting that back on. So if we had the money and the architect and the engineers here that we could do that, I would like to see homes that have stucco on the sides of them, stucco siding instead of the plank or the clapboard siding that we have. It's very durable. It's very a green energy siding, you know, to keep you warm during the winter and cool during this, like almost like adobe housing, actually. There was one project around here. They're looking to come build homes and build into the ground, you know. same concept, and dome and all this stuff. And I thought, well, if you can afford that, because that's a lot of neat architectural design and curves. I mean, that would be awesome. Can you see that on the reservation? Instead of square cheese block house, we have cool architectural design homes. So, I mean, I always envisioned something like that. And we have Ojijingda, their little manufacturing thing up. You'll see it by SWA, where they do build houses in there, but it's just like the cookie cutter, boom, done, in, out, in, out, in, out. And so there's no, I don't know. To me, no rhyme or reason from it. It's just all the same. There's nothing curb appealing about your home. If I'm always thinking about those kinds of things, and I always think, if you all live in the same home and you work and you come home every day and your neighbor doesn't work and their yard's all trash, but you work and your side of the duplex is all cleaned up. And I thought that must be very depressing to come home to that every day if you live in one of the communities and you're working hard here on the reservation, So I always look at those things. One of my girlfriends, I use that because that's her living situation. She works and the neighbors don't. So, and you can tell the difference just in a duplex, who works and who doesn't. Or maybe somebody does work and they just don't care. And I always think, why would you live like that? It's your environment. Of course, that drives us all. But I don't know. That's what I would envision if we had the money and we had architects that we could do that. Yeah, green energy homes and just a different style of home that's visually pleasing to your eyes when you come home. That's what I always think about homes. My cousin Tamara stands and looks back. She's married to a spotted tail. I can't remember his name. John. I know they're doing a lot of stuff on Pine Ridge, different homes like that. And I think that's awesome. Thunder Valley, like that is just amazing. And I wish we would take off and do something like that here too. But
yeah, and unfortunately, like projects like those are even like privately funded. They're not funded by or supported by the government or the tribe. It's
and it's sad because our tribe, for whatever reason, will not reach out to private funding and just go and get that funding and get the dollars flowing and be innovative with how we get funding. A lot of times tribes, they rely on, we have an Indian casino, but ours is broke. Ours is generating no revenue to come back into the tribe for different things that we need done. So it's just kind of, I'm like, I go donate once a year, but other than that, it's just, so that's sad to me that you're going to say, wait, but we have a casino, but it's not generating revenue to aid the tribe, which is why it was built. So yeah, I don't know. I wish housing would go with some private funding and get things done, but yeah.
What do you envision for the future generations? What do you envision for the housing kind of situation? And if you can kind of paint the picture for what you envision, that would be great.
I think that we have to develop our own funding, be it through the tribe or somehow start a nonprofit, something like Habitat for Humanity or something like that, where we could build a home the way that they want it. Almost every home I ever built, it was whoever was in charge of, they wanted, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And we had to settle on 1,200 feet, I think, just for the money. I would like to say I was really happy that saddened by the fact that I didn't go on to school to become an architect. But I worked with many architects in my life, and I got to understand the building trade and the different people I met and what they go through to do their different jobs. I think that we need more blue-collar workers or training for that, and a lot of something about funding our money to buy. I would say I'm happy with my choice in the end. Chose my folks over at that time going on to school. I realized, like I said, I lived in the same place for my whole I'm 72 years old now. For the Hood office, the Denver office, funded part of my house for a payment for 25 years, and then funded it after that. It was repaired it. After that, it was repaired it. It's a program that I think I could be of help to somebody to what I understand of it.
Can you kind of paint a picture on your vision for the communities for Pine Ridge?
Sure enough. Here within the Oglalas here, we got 7 Teoshpais. It's really hard to, at this point, to reestablish those Teoshpais. So in this 21st century way, we can take a plot of land and then take like-minded thinking Lakota people and start building a sustainable community using solar and natural build and growing our own food, having a few head of cattle, maybe some, buffalo, and, doing our own thing. Mm-hmm. And bringing that old concept back of the Teoshpa base. Mm-hmm. Because that's who made up the nation was Tiwahe, Teoshpa, and then the nation. So Teoshpais are the backbone of the nation. They're the ones. So bringing that back, because we still have that concept. We still have our language. Luckily, we were put in an area that's remote. We got 1 million people here in the state of South Dakota. We got 7 million cattle. That's not too much people for the state of South Dakota. 1 million people, that's not much. But that's what resides here. So us being here within the southwest corner of the state, we were able to retain our culture, heritage, ceremonies, language, and all of this. We're not close to an interstate. We're not. That was good for us. That was something that I think that really, really was good for us. It helped us to retain the old ways. And then here we are in that 21st century. So that's why I was mentioning it's, to rebuilding of this new Teoshpai system. Because it can be done. We take pit houses like she has. She's got a nice greenhouse, pit house, can grow food, citrus year round, can do things like that. Bring in like-minded thinking people together and establish something that can be replicated across the Indian territories. And as well as non-natives can get involved and start doing the same thing. We got people that do that here within the state. We get upset at them when we see them. They're too slow. Here we are. We drive up on them in the road rage, and there they are sitting in the buggy, going to town, or doing something, headed somewhere, and there we are in the road rage. We're these Amish people, they're, what are they doing? They're no good, but they're probably the only people here that hardly has any carbon moccasin print and coexisting with the earth. They're the only ones. So we need to all start doing that. Yeah. We can do it with a Lakota twist to it, and then bring our way back. We can do that. But yeah, let's go take a little tour, and yeah. So that's what I would like to see is reestablishment of Teoshpa base systems.
I like that.
Yeah, because it can replicate across. A lot of different tribes come to visit us throughout the year, especially during the solstice or throughout the summer, Sundance, a lot of different tribes, they come. Most of their tribes are from inner cities and kind of lost their culture, their way like that. But they come see us and they regain that, they like that, they like the life-giving force of that sun up there. Then the language-based, ceremony, all of this stuff. They like that. It takes them back, takes one person back and kind of centers that person and starts seeing the bigger picture that we're all related, you know. Heck yeah.